Okay, so today is February 16th. It is 6 o'clock, and the Board of Selectmen's meeting is in session. If we could all stand and do our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right. That was a whirlwind to get started. So if we're going to go over our agenda tonight, before we even start with that, one of the things you're going to notice is that I have a laptop, Bob has an iPad, Jim still has the binder, and we are trying to...
We're trying 3 different methods.
We are embracing change. The selectmen have tried to go paperless. This is one of our initiatives that we started a year or so ago. We've migrated to our new website. Our website has the ability to have the selectmen's meeting, all the documentation in advance on the web for everybody to see and participate in. So we are going to try to, at least I'm going to try to operate my end from my laptop, and hopefully I don't miss anything and it works smoothly. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over our agenda. We have our meeting minutes to review tonight. We have no invited guests. We have some recognition. I believe, Jim, you have some recognition
Yes.
you want to provide. We have the town manager's report. We have a series of discussion items. We have the budget. We're going to be discussing with the DPW the budget. We are going to be talking with about Algonquin gas expansion. We are going to talk about the, am I on the wrong meeting?
Yes, I think you are.
We already got a, I've already got a problem here. Am I talking the wrong one?
Yeah, we have invited guests. We have 3 invited guests.
Oh, yeah, I'm on the wrong agenda.
You want
So
to read off the paper?
No, we're gonna live with this. I am gonna back up and, yeah, we're gonna back up and try to do this again. Right, that's the point of doing this whole thing. All right, excuse me, I'm getting red in the face, I can feel it.
Excuse me, Jim. Excuse me.
How do I get to the right agenda?
You could
No.
borrow this one.
No, I need to learn this, right?
Okay.
So how do I,
Board of Selectmen page.
I'm on the Board of Selectmen page. It comes up, click here to see, it says February 2nd down here. So how come now available? All right, I'm gonna go,
The homepage, you should be able to see today's agenda, the link to today's agenda.
boy, this is embarrassing. I think I would've had this worked out in advance, right? Okay, let's pull that up again.
If you only had that, you have that Jeopardy music?
Jeopardy music, huh? Yeah, it keeps coming up February 2nd to me.
You guys surprised me. I'm not prepared.
You're not prepared. Yeah, let me try again. Give me a few minutes and I'll, if it doesn't work for me, I'll go back to the old paper. So I pull it up on the thing here. Let's go there, public meeting. There it is. There it is, okay. So we have meeting minutes to review. We have invited guests. We have a public hearing. No wonder everybody was looking at me kind of odd. We have a public hearing for a common vic license for Upton Pizza House. We have the police union here to execute their contract, and we also have Dave Meridian, our representative here. Boy, that was a mistake, huh? So we have recognition from Mr. Broch, you're going to do recognition. We have the manager's report. Our discussion item here is to talk about the DPW budget. We are going to execute a contract, not a contract, but execute the warrant for the special town meeting. We have a motion to discuss and hopefully execute a electricity aggregate company for the town. We have on here on the agenda to approve department head contracts. We are gonna pass that over for tonight. We're gonna deal with that another night. We're gonna execute the presidential primary ballot. We have a discussion about CHAPA. We are gonna discuss the Selectmen's initiative on opiates, how we're gonna deal with that in our community. And I have a note here that Bob also has a comment he would like to make, and we're gonna make that earlier in the meeting. I have it here on my notes. So we will probably do that right after the manager's report, so we can go to the other items, okay? And we have no executive session, and then if I can get through this, we will adjourn the meeting, hopefully in a reasonable amount of time. All right? Anybody see anything? Did I miss anything?
No.
Okay. So let's move up. Let me get myself back up to where I gotta be. Previous minutes. Gentlemen,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the February 2nd, 2016 meeting minutes as submitted this evening.
Second that motion.
show that is unanimous action of the board. Very good. All right, so now we go to invited guests. I think our public hearing needs to go first, correct? And I'm gonna have to get that out. Well, actually, no, I'm gonna keep trying to do this. Let's see, what do we have here? So I don't see the public vic public hearing on here. I have the state grant about with Dave, and I have the police union contract. All right, so I will read that out of here. Because we got a public hearing, right? There's gotta be a,
I don't see the
I don't see the
applicant here.
notice. The notice.
Just looking for him, he's not here in the
okay,
audience.
it's not here? Well, I don't see the,
The notice is not in here
I
either.
don't see the notice here.
Sandy, do you have the notice for tonight's hearing?
We will open the hearing anyway tonight, and we'll just continue it to another date. Okay, so we will, just move forward.
Just have to move forward and
We'll
pass
move
over.
forward. So we're gonna pass over that for now. And, we are gonna move to our, the police union contract. So, Sergeant, could you come on up? Chief?
We can read it.
You can read it.
You want
I'll
to
read-
just, oh,
I'll read it after this. Oh, this is the contract? Okay. So, it has been a negotiation, right, year?
Yes.
For the contract. I know we've, hopefully, everybody feels that it's been a fair and practice in what we've done, and everything's worked out well. Obviously, we're here to sign everything.
On the union side, the final result has been very well accepted, and everyone is very content. I think it's a fair arrangement on our side, and commend your town manager on being a tough negotiator.
Well, I think, fair and tough go together, right?
It
That's
does.
what it is.
It absolutely does.
Right, and I think our goal as select persons is to make sure that we protect the community, but also all our employees are treated fairly and appropriately. And
And,
that's
yeah,
really our goal.
We made it to that point. and,
Right, right. So, does anybody have any comments? Bob, you got any comments? Jim?
no.
No, just again, very pleased that, again, it's great negotiation when both parties are
Yep.
relatively happy.
Yes,
So,
yep,
thank you.
it worked out pretty
Thank you.
quickly.
Okay. Bob,
Miss-
anything?
No, I'm prepared to motion to
All right.
ratify.
So, Blythe, was there anything you'd like to say, or?
I enjoyed the process, led by Sergeant Sear. It's always a spirited debate and had a good outcome, so.
Good. All right, Robert?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to motion to ratify the collective bargaining agreement between Local 162 Mass Coalition of Police, IUPA, AFL-CIO for a period of 2015 through 2018 as in this document.
Would second that motion.
Show that as unanimous action of the board. All right, congratulations. So where do we sign?
Just want to
Wait a second.
Way in the back.
Last page.
Last
Thank
page.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much for your service.
Thank you very much.
We thank you, please.
And thank you.
As always.
It was a blast.
Can't wait to do it again.
3 more years. All right.
I gave you the clean copies. I just handed it to you, right?
All right, I don't see any signature.
No signature page on this one.
It's,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah, you go back
it's
past the
between the
EIP.
EIP and
Yep,
it's
there
a few
we go.
pages in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Page 24, okay. How many copies you need signed?
Two
2?
you have, so if you can sign them and then we'll pass them over to Alan. And then have Eric come in when he's.
What we do, if it's okay with you, we can leave all of the
16.
copies here, and come in and sign during regular business hours, and then
Yeah, why don't you
Take some
sign it
copies
and then you
back.
can have him stop in.
make it easy, so we have copies all over the place. You never know, he might stop in the handicap spot.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Private joke.
I wonder if I could qualify for a mental handicap.
That me bleeding? Oh.
Almost had to give myself a ticket.
I heard.
Pass those over to Alan.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, excuse me.
There's not a signature line in this one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for your service. Yeah.
Thank you, be safe.
Yeah.
Take care.
So, next on our agenda is Representative Meridian. Dave?
Thank you and good evening, everyone.
Welcome, Dave, good evening.
Dave, it's a pleasure to have you again.
Well, it's good to be here. I want to come and bring you just a quick little update about the governor's budget, which is affectionately called House 2 that came out this year. But first, I want to say thank you to the members of the select board and the town. Back in December, and before that, I think you'll remember that I filled you in that I was planning on doing a coat drive. And I just want to thank you for everything that the town did in terms of getting bins for me to use and collect and distribute throughout all the communities. I'm proud to report that we collected just over 500 coats that we were able to distribute back. They went to all of our local school districts. They went to the DCF office, which is in Whitensville, which obviously services many of our families in the area. So they went to a great use, and all the superintendents were extremely thrilled with it. So I want to say thank you for that. Now, moving forward, talking about Upton and the budget here, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of numbers, and I can connect with you after if you'd like, but I'll kind of lay out the main numbers that everyone tends to look at. In the governor's proposal, all these numbers for it, Upton will continue to receive for Chapter 70 the $19,248, with the understanding that we have the regional school district, which will now be increased to $12,175,801. So you'd see an increase of $44,220 from last year's numbers. For the unrestricted general government aid, or known as UGA, it would be $511,914, which is an increase of $21,105.
21,000, you said, Dave?
21,105. The Chapter 90 numbers, unfortunately, are still forthcoming. The governor actually just put forward with a bill asking the legislature to allocate $200 million for that. And if you'll remember back when the governor and lieutenant governor and their administration took office, they actually released $100 million that was being withheld. So they're gonna put the full $200 million if the legislature puts it forward towards Chapter 90. So obviously it'll go out through a formula, but I don't know of the exact number yet because obviously the legislature hasn't done it. I do also want to commend the town manager. Similar to last year where I was able to reach out and ask for any of the town's main budget requests, and we were successful in getting a portion of the money allocated for the salt shed here in Upton. This year, you came in with a very reasonable ask. I think it's something that will certainly help the town out. It's something that I actually had the opportunity today to meet with the chair of Ways and Means and propose my budget priorities to be included in the budget. And it would be for 13 defibrillators and a training unit to replace all those units on the trucks with an ask of $28,000. So I think that's something to certainly commend you for because you looked at both the short and the near-term effects of it, while also understanding that there's still a tough fiscal climate. We unfortunately can't be giving out the money that once you could see in Massachusetts, but we're working our way back. In terms of this budget, there's significant progress towards eliminating the long-term structural imbalance, which was identified last year by reducing the identified gap from $1.8 billion in fiscal 16 to $635 million in fiscal 17. So you can see making great strides there. A big part of that is the reduced use of one-time budget solutions by nearly $1 billion over the past 2 years, which came down from $1.2 billion in FY15 to $253 million in FY17. So not relying on the one-time funds for that. Something that is huge for our state in terms of bond rating and loaning is this budget proposes a sizable deposit into the state's stabilization fund of over $200 million. The exact number isn't quite known yet, somewhere from about 202, 208, all the way up to 280 million, so it'd be somewhere in there. They have proposed an increase in unrestricted local aid by 4.3%, which is equal to 100% of the consensus revenue growth rate for state tax revenue. I also just want to highlight a couple things in this budget, and going back, I know you guys are going paperless, but we're lucky we got this nice heavy budget here to go through. In it, there are increases in investments in education, whereas the Chapter 70 formula actually for last year said that there should be a net, basically taking into account inflation, it said there should be a net negative 0.2 effect. So basically saying, just looking at the formula, that there didn't have to be an increase. This administration put forth $72 million into that. $18.6 million for quality kindergarten grant programs, which is helping our communities achieve tuition-free full-day kindergarten. $20 million for revised charter school reimbursement formula for towns with students who participate, and there's $5.6 million to support development of next-generation MCAS testing. And another thing that certainly rings near and dear to the heart with what we saw with the issue with DCF in Auburn, just a couple towns over, this budget projects it at $938 million, which is actually, if you base it on FY13 numbers, it's a 26% increase to how much they're contributing there. So there's certainly quite a good commitment to our children and families. Couple things that obviously Upton's quite familiar with is the community compact agreement that we were happy that we were able to get signed in. Obviously, Lieutenant Governor was thrilled for it and proud to let you know that they've signed over 100 agreements already in just a little over the first year. So there's a municipal modernization bill that should be coming up. I don't know when. I would hope that we would take it up before the budget in April, but obviously everything's kind of centered now around the House version of the budget that's going to come out. But basically, the municipal modernization bill would certainly help our cities and towns kind of cut through the red tape that you see instead of the outdated or burdensome regulations. That's kind of it in a nutshell. It's a much more comprehensive bill. But so I know I gave you all sorts of information and numbers in the beginning. I can gladly get them to you again. I can certainly keep you informed once we do see a proposal for Chapter 90, once the legislature hopefully invested $200 million. But I wanted to come, keep you in the loop, let you know certainly the main budget requests. I'm gonna fight for it just as hard as we fought for the Upton Salt Shed last year. Hopefully, we're as successful. There's no guarantees, obviously, with the budget, but please do know that I'm gonna be advocating for it best I can.
Good. Gentlemen, we'll open up to the board.
No,
Any
he's
comments?
answered it well. We've received some communication, but again, all we can do is thank you for your efforts, to recognize our needs and to go forward with them. It's much appreciated.
Again, thank you for reaching out with grant opportunities that are out there. I mean, every nickel helps in a small town. You brushed on Chapter 90 funds. You know how critical Chapter 90 funds are to the town of Upton, so hopefully, those will stay. But again, thank you for all your effort. Thank you for your diligence, and your communication has been phenomenal
Thank
with this. And it's great to see these increases, and it's good to see you always.
Oh.
So, thank you.
So, Dave, I think I'm gonna echo my colleagues. You've been very accessible to us, which is, it's very nice to have that. And also the communication has been outstanding, and I know that we all feel free that we can reach out to you at any time and ask you a question. I know Blythe utilizes your office at different times for trying to gain support for some of our actions. So as we move forward, we will get in touch with you when we need assistance.
Well, it sounds good, and I'm gonna continue to advocate as always. We wish that the numbers could be higher, but understanding that we're trying to balance a very delicate budget, I'm certainly happy with these, and obviously, we're looking at the House to hopefully increase them a little bit more.
Something's better than nothing.
It's certainly true.
Absolutely.
So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Nice to see you. Oh, sorry.
Thanks. So next is our manager's report. Blythe?
As you know, we've been working on trying to address the issue of double poles throughout town. We got National Grid to go out and spend some time specifically in the Main Street, Warren Street area. They've identified a number. Approximately 5 of them have fire alarm wire for our master box system that need to be moved. So we're going to see about either borrowing a bucket truck from a neighboring town or renting one so we can get the work done to move our utilities and be part of the solution to being able to have National Grid take some of those out. So a slow but steady process.
Yep.
Want to just keep you up to date on where we stand with health insurance. We met with the Insurance Advisory Committee last week. We are fully expecting a 12.8% increase in our rates due to a couple of factors. And I won't bore you with details of how insurance works right now, but we can talk about it more if you'd like. The committee is looking at some options for plan design changes. We're also going to go out to bid and look and see if there are other companies besides going through Maya for Blue Cross that might be a better alternative for us. Just trying to look at all the options. It's not something everybody's happy with, but I think we'll get there if we keep working on it. So that's something that's important, especially to come up on the budget. I had a meeting last week with our financial advisor. He has given us some suggestions on how we might finance some of the items coming down the road in a couple of years in our capital budget. We're going to see some debt dropping off in 2018, 19, 20, and there may be possibilities to look at how to do some projects without costing any more money in the future, which is always something we strive to do. So I don't have those details worked out yet, but I think we can talk about it at another time when we dig into the CIP in more detail. Today, I spent about 3 hours in Worcester at the Regional Planning Agency hearing a presentation on the state's policy about complete streets. Complete streets is a policy that looks at making our streets accessible to everyone who uses them, not just cars, but bikes, pedestrians, emergency vehicles, and so on, and gives you a strategy to try to look at when you're doing street work in the future, how you can make changes that can make them more accessible to all. So I think it's something that we should spend some time on again in the future. There is grant money available through the state to help start the implementation. It's not something we do everywhere, but might make a lot of sense in some areas of town. So,
Okay.
a good new topic for the future.
All right, thank you. So, in my first night of doing electronic paperless, I'm out of order, so we forgot to do recognition.
May I ask, I'd like to ask a follow-up. I had spoken to the town manager this week. Some citizens had concerns about the power outages, and I saw your correspondence with National Grid, and I think it's fair to say that based upon national security, some of that information is restricted, and we cannot provide where the power sources come from, but to be assured that this board is going, through the town manager, going to look at that issue. So I didn't want anyone to think if they don't hear something, but again, we received communication from, I believe it was National Grid, and
Directly, yeah.
we will work with them, but yeah, it won't be as open as normally it would be due to requirements by federal law, so.
Homeland Security. Yes.
Right. Mhm.
Okay. All right, all set, Bob?
Yes.
So we're gonna go to recognition first, and that was Jim.
Yeah.
So, Jim, please.
Yeah, I just want to comment with respect to the Upton Men's Club. It has been brought to my attention, and I've actually had a conversation with a member of the Upton Men's Club as an administrator at Black Snow Valley Tech. He was looking for some ideas or some items that we may have at Valley Tech that the Upton Men's Club is proposing to do an ice out on Pratt Pond. For those who don't know what an ice out is, it's a fun little fundraising idea. It's their plan is to put a wood spool, and again, correct me if I'm, I'm sure they'll correct me if I'm wrong, but a wood spool with a plastic snowman on Pratt Pond, and literally sell raffle tickets as far as when that snowman will fall through the ice. And it is done in a lot of places. It's done a lot up in Vermont and a lot of the little country towns, but it is a fun event. It can be a great fundraiser. I know the town of Danville, Vermont has been doing this for about 30 years, and at $1 a ticket, I think last year they sold 16,000 tickets, all the way up into Canada and all over. So it's a great fundraiser. It's a lot of fun. It's exciting. But again, I want to thank the Upton Men's Club for their open-mindedness, their initiative, and their creativity to bring good things to the town of Upton and continue to do great things for the town and with the town of Upton. And again, all the money that they will collect, minus whatever prizes that they put forward, will ultimately come back to the community. So it is a great fundraiser, and thank you to the Upton Men's Club for that.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Bob, you have something?
Mr. Fowler, I believe, is going to zoom in on this. In the last few weeks, the members of the Upton Fire Department volunteered for what the American Lung Association calls the stair climb. And basically, I have to apologize, I don't know the number of stairs, but with full gear on, they climb these stairs as fundraisers for charities. I believe you can go to the website, it's on there under the American Lung Association, and Upton has done a fantastic job through these members and their volunteer. I'd like to cite them. It's the names are Seth Grill, Bob Johnson Jr., and Bonnie Lopez. Bonnie's the pretty one in the middle, for anybody that may be confused. But this is a good example of, our departments and members of our community. We see this often. We see it through the unions donating their time and their energies for the benefit of the community. And this is a great event. They've done it for a number of years, and I think they deserve to be recognized. I went on and the website today, and I noticed that in our newsletter, this is also cited. So if you want to see a better quality picture, you can go there and see it. But again, congratulations to them. They deserve to be recognized for this effort.
Okay, anything else? I have nothing? Okay, so now we're gonna move to the next phase. Bob's had something else he wanted to bring up, so it's kind of like new business or just something he wanted to talk about, so we're gonna allow that to happen.
To be clear, my colleagues do not know what I'm going to say tonight. This is my own opinion. It is not a representative of the board, but I feel it needs to be said. At some point, when people impugn the integrity of individuals, especially when they are people that you care about and you work with, you feel there is a response that's needed. And many times this is done through the media. Many of you people may have read through Upton Daily and other sites call it an editorial that basically, in no other words, subjugates beliefs onto the town of Upton and its citizens as to where this individual thinks they lie. And I think it needs to be clarified. One of the comments the individual made is that the Board of Selectmen does not communicate back to them, and the only option is through town meeting. The correct answer to that is $32 worth of information were mailed to that individual's house based upon the ability for the town to charge for administrative fees. A year and a half ago, or about a year ago, this individual had concerns. I personally drove to their place of employment in Southborough one evening and spent an hour and a half with that individual, sitting down, allowing the individual to go through all his concerns and issues. One of the concerns was that his brother was not hired as DPW director, and I explained to him the process. I also explained to him that it is not solely one individual's responsibility through this process. All applicants are submitted to the Personnel Board for their screening process. That is their role. Once the Personnel Board reviews them, they, in conjunction with the town manager, set up interviews with likely candidates. Usually an individual is selected from another community that has expertise in the field and is brought in this case, a DPW manager. They sit and they interview, and from that, a consensus is made not only with the town manager, but with the Personnel Board as to who they feel is the most likely candidate to achieve the position. From that, the town manager offers the position. It is her authority to do that. Once that is done, the town manager gets consent from the board, which is a process in our bylaws, that the Board of Selectmen offer consent or denial. Most of the time, because we respect her, it is consent. We respect the process of the Personnel Board. This is how the hiring takes place. So to make an accusation that the town manager's character and integrity is challenged because you have a personal agenda because of this is wrong. There was also an accusation made about the town not processing relative to a hot box, which is a equipment that's used for the DPW. I made it clear that I would respond. I responded not only in one, but in 3 emails to this individual explaining to him what that process was. So the statement to say that the Board of Selectmen does not communicate and does not respond is not factual. There was another issue brought forward by this individual relative to the town manager having a vehicle. The town of Upton receives $148,000 last year from the Green Communities Initiative. That's enough to buy 6 vehicles. Board of Selectmen did an analysis and found that at the 54 cents a mile to compensate the town manager for mileage based upon town use would exceed the actual cost of a life of a vehicle over 10 to 15-year period. It made more sense to buy the vehicle. We then were in more compliance with the Green Communities Initiative. But it isn't solely the Board of Selectmen's decision. The Board of Selectmen forwarded that to the Finance Committee for their review, which is process. The Finance Committee reviewed it and voted favorably to it. It then went to a town meeting where the citizens of the town had a chance to express their voice. They voted almost unanimously in favor of this acquisition. So the process showed that in both instances that this individual is challenging, the town of Upton has been totally compliant. So I have, I guess I would say candidly, an issue with the fact that this individual won't let go with a personal agenda. I did some homework, and what's confusing to me is if you feel that the town vehicle is not needed, then you are challenging that the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and the voters of this town don't know what they're doing, which couldn't be more from the truth. There's some irony to this, and I have to say this. The same individual that's writing these letters has not been to a town meeting in 11 years. They also have a state vehicle parked in their driveway that they use to and from work. That's real irony. So I would say it's easier to criticize than to get involved and be a part of the process and be accountable. I would encourage that individual to get involved and be accountable. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. We're going to move on to discussion items now. And our first discussion item is with the DPW regarding budget. Vinnie, please come forward.
Good evening.
Evening.
Let me get my budget book. All right, so what I'm going to talk about first is the operating budget for the Highway Division. I won't go through line by line, a lot of lines there. But bottom overall budget, there is a 4.24% increase in the overall budget for the Highway Division. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna highlight some of these lines. Salaries, you'll see a decrease. Part of the reason for the decrease, is you know we're gonna have an increase overall in salaries, but contractual agreement. But what there was a reallocation of some of the money for the overtime. Money that was spent in the Parks and Forestry Division was reallocated to its proper place. Or let me back up a little bit. Money that was spent was money that was budgeted in the highway budget that was spent in Parks and Forestry was reallocated to the Parks and Forestry budget for the overtime. So that's why there's a slight decrease in the overall salaries there. One of the biggest increases, the biggest increase is the stormwater maintenance down at the bottom of the first page there.
Vinnie, if I may, there was a typo on the animal disposal, correct?
Yes, the 4. Good catch, because I highlighted that
Yeah,
myself.
it's like, wow,
Yeah.
that was,
So that line is obviously flat, 1,200 for FY17 request, and it matches the FY16 request. You're right. Good catch. Anyways, so I talk about the biggest increase to the budget is the stormwater. It has to do with the regulatory requirements under the MS4 permit. It's been anticipated that that permit is going to be out sometime in February. I know you've probably been hearing that for some time now, but it has passed a review process, so if we don't get it in February, I'm going to guess it's going to be here in March. And so with the new permit are going to be new regulatory requirements that we're going to have to abide by. So,
Can I
story.
expand on that a little bit, Vinnie?
Yeah, well, if I'm gonna jump in on something also, I'm looking at the training, Vinnie. Your training has gone up 37%, 36%. Could you just kind of give us a little overview of what the training, additional training is gonna be for?
Sure. What I budgeted this year was really what was budgeted in prior years, FY15. And the reason why I bumped that up to what it was previously was because of the new regulatory requirements. It's gonna require a little bit more training, getting these guys up to speed with what's required in them out in the field.
Okay.
So that's why I bumped that up.
Are we incorporating any safety training in what the workers for?
We do that anyways. A lot of that stuff is free through Maya. So anytime that I can jump on any of that stuff that's free,
Okay.
we're all about it, but not everything's gonna be free.
Okay.
So.
I'm spending a little more time on stormwater, if you wouldn't mind. This is a significant jump from 24,000 to 50.
Yeah.
It's a few components that you should know about. First of all, we've increased the amount for street sweeping and for catch basin cleaning. We're gonna need to do more of that work than we've done in the past, and we've known that's been coming for a while. We also, it's not all completely an increase. As you know, for years, we've been budgeting about $15,000-$20,000 as a separate warrant article for something called NEPDs. It's really to do part of our stormwater monitoring work and being a part of the Stormwater Coalition. It's really become an everyday function, and so having it as a warrant article just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense anymore. So we actually wrapped that in here. So if you go to the warrant article page, you're not gonna find it there this year. That's part of it is here, so it's not completely an increase.
Right.
We also have not spent really any time, I hesitate just to use the word ever, because that's probably not a fair statement. We have a number of stormwater containment basins around town that have been built as part of subdivisions that we really haven't done the maintenance on. If you look at the one on North Street behind the North Street Pump Station, it's got some small trees growing on it because we haven't been able to go in there and cut it and keep it maintained. So planning to do some of that work to clear them with our staff, but we need to manage them going forward. And this includes some money for herbicides to make sure that once we get them cleared one by one, and Vinnie can tell you how many there are, I'm afraid I don't remember the detail. We want to make sure that we're doing a better job of that, and that's something that he brought to our attention that I'm very pleased about. Not pleased we haven't done it, but pleased that we're gonna get on top of it.
Right. Well, the increase on the stormwater side was about $25,000 or $26,000. We went from $24,000 to $50,000. Part of that increase, as Blythe said, was $15,000 that was already appropriated under the capital that we shifted over here to the operating budget because it is an operating expense. The additional $10,000 is, some of it is what Blythe pointed out, for detention, retention basins. Every subdivision has these. I don't know if you're familiar with what these, what they do is they collect storm water and put it back into the ground. And there's an outfall that if it gets so high. These are supposed to be maintained. I'm not gonna go back in time and point fingers as to what happened, but the bottom line is we need to take care of it now. And so, working with the highway superintendent, what we're gonna do is cut the brush. We're not gonna pull any of the stumps or anything like that, but we're gonna cut the brush. And, so the $4,000 is really for herbicide. So that's that. There was an increase in, as Blythe pointed out, for the street sweeping. What we're gonna be required under the new permit is to do, originally they were talking like doing the town twice a year. But what they're doing is once a year and added parking lots and stuff like that if needed. And so that's it as far as the stormwater.
Well, I'm gonna jump in on the stormwater, have been a planning board member for 10 years.
Okay.
It was frustrating, that new subdivisions come in and the drainage structures were never taken care of. The easements were all there, everything was there. And we have a number of subdivisions, that, when I was on the planning board, older ones that were having drainage issues. So I'm gonna encourage you in years to come to keep ratcheting this up.
Right.
Because we have neighborhoods that flood out, that shouldn't be flooding out, it's just because sediment has got in and causing dams. Or we have growth in things that are, changing the flow of water. So I think one of the first things that Blythe did when she became on board is we had a initiative to try to take care of a lot of the drainage. We had real drainage issues in our streets.
Right.
So it is important that we take care of this, because it's a true impact to our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
When somebody's cellar floods out because we're not maintaining the structures properly, or haven't been maintaining them, that's not appropriate, so.
Well, as you know, we've identified a lot of areas under the capital plan, areas in town, problem areas in town that we're gonna address, but it's very expensive.
Yeah,
But
clearly understood.
We're aware of it.
Clearly understood, but I think
Yeah.
over time, if we continue to ratchet this up a little bit
Yeah.
and do a little bit more every year, and at some point, my personal opinion is that we may need to dedicate manpower just to stormwater at some point, because I think it's gonna get so involved for the communities. Just doing it as okay, we got some free time, we'll take care of that. It's gonna have to be a dedicated service that we're gonna have to provide.
I completely agree.
Okay.
There are some communities that have even gone so far as set up a separate utility and charge a fee across to every resident to fund the stormwater work. I don't think we're there yet.
No, I'm not in favor of that, but I'm in favor of us, ratcheting up what we do, slowly,
Yes.
increase the budget to manage this. And if at one point, it's gonna be resources, and manpower is resource, capital, our human capital is something we're gonna have to increase to maintain this, because it's ours, man hours, it's FTEs, so we're gonna have to work on that.
Right.
But again, I'm encouraging you, and I'm thankful that you're acknowledging this, that it's something we need to do,
Right.
okay?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I'd like to address the snow removal. I realize it's a variable, you can't predict the future, but justifying the increase, I mean,
Based on past expenditure, that's all.
what do you project we'll spend this year? Do you have a,
We're gonna hit that, we're gonna exceed that $210,000 mark.
Wow.
I gave Blythe an update with my monthly report, and I didn't give everything that, I didn't know the salaries yet, so I gave you what we had expensed minus the salary, so, and then you figure we had a storm today, and these guys actually got called in yesterday, so, yeah. You know, you figure we're in mid-February right now. We're in the, you know, we're in the toughest month right now. So, my prediction is we're gonna exceed that.
Yeah, we certainly don't expect to spend the 420 or 430 we spent last
Right.
year.
That's,
But
yeah.
if, trying to just move the needle up a little bit, because as you know, once you set a figure, you can't go below it. So we don't want to jump it too high.
Right.
Clearly understood. I mean, we could declare a state of emergency and apply it to the tax rate next year. We don't want to do that. We want to manage well, so
Right.
I understand this. I'm just asking for clarification. I didn't
Yeah.
think we were that high this year. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
led into a low because it's not what it was last year.
No, well, last year this time, I believe at this time last year, we're at 16 events. Right now, we're at about half that, 8 events. But what doesn't seem like very significant, you know, ultimately, they're still costing the town overtime for the guys to come in and material will go out there, put sand and salt out and calcium as well, so
Okay.
Salt
they are
prices,
expensive.
salt prices are up, and we've been imposing some new requirements on our contractors. I think over time, we'll see those hourly prices go up as well, so we want to be prepared for them.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just comment on the building utilities. I see we've gone up a little bit on those, and you focused on your narrative on that it's electricity. I was wondering if,
That's based on actual consumption of electricity. I actually looked at what we had spent, you know, the kilowatt hours, and, you know, based on what the rate is that we have right now, that's where the projections are.
I'm wondering
So-
with the next
Yeah,
wave of
I talked to
green
Bill Taylor
communities.
yesterday.
Yeah,
We have the police, fire, and DPW clearly in our target.
yeah. 'Cause I'm saying with the next wave of grant money that's coming
Yeah.
in from the Green Committee grant, I mean, it may be, it'd definitely be worthwhile to target.
We just did some work down at Public Works. He changed some of the outdoor lighting, indoor lighting over to highway garage. And I did speak to some of the people in the committee that we're gonna do some more work down there as well. I wanted to change some lighting on the salt shed.
Yep.
Some stuff like that. So, so we've already started, but we're not done yet.
Yep.
Which is good.
Now, sometimes you do those cost-saving measures to compensate for the increases in fees, so, you know, it's just, it's a battle, so you,
Right.
you know, we try to level fund where you can, but,
Right.
no, I understand, but like I said, maybe we can just focus the next round of
Yep.
grant money on that.
The office trailer is all run on electricity. It's electric heat, electric everything, and for the first we got it, I don't think we anticipated that it would be a much higher user of electricity than we'd had in the past, and I think we're trying to reflect that in this budget as well.
Okay.
All right, Vinnie, next?
Okay. Parks and Forestry.
May I just, I've got one more. I hate to do this.
Go ahead.
But I never got this one. I still don't get it. Roadside mowing. The intent is, I mean, we're a rural community. Why do we mow the sides of the roads? And that,
Line of sight. Sight distance. When you come into an intersection, it's not everywhere. It's,
Okay.
Not everywhere we mow is a
Yeah.
corner, obviously, but aesthetics too. It just looks nicer for the town.
okay,
So,
I have to ask the question.
Right.
It's one of my little, I don't get it, but okay.
right. The reason why there's an increase in this budget, I don't know who the person was that worked here before, but it was somebody that did a really good job, very, very cheap for the town. He's no longer,
I know who it is, yeah.
he's no longer doing this kind of work. I don't even know if he's around anymore. So we've got a new guy that we hired, and it's contractual, you know, because we did bid that out, and so that's, you know, that's what the current bids are. So those are real numbers.
Okay.
So, so based on that hourly rate, that's the other thing I wanted to point out too. The guy that we hired before was only able to, well, the guy that we hired before did the whole town. This guy, with the budget that we had, we're only able to do 3/4 of the town. So what I did was increase the budget by the hourly rate to encompass the entire town.
Okay.
So-
You've answered my question.
Okay.
I mean, I know I'm not in the majority on that, but I still express my opinion.
Okay.
Really?
I just, well, honestly, I say, okay, for the sake of 2 months, it's over, and if they all die, and you're plowing over it, so.
Mr. Chairman, if I can ask just one more question too, with respect to professional services, Vinnie, I know you're on the narrative, you identified, you know, what potentially the professional services would be used for. I mean,
Engineering.
Have we trended, I mean, do we know how we're gonna use that money, or is that money just there for when we do need to
Well,
bring
looking
it
back
in?
at what we had spent the previous year, no, we didn't spend anywhere close to $15,000. But again, with the new regulatory requirements under the MS4 permit, it's something that I'm gonna be looking to do. One of the things that I'm doing right now, we talked a lot about catch basins and mapping, well, one of the things that I'm doing right now is with GIS, mapping all of our outfalls. As you know, we belong to the Central Mass Stormwater Coalition. So a lot of the information that we have here in town is on that website, but it's incomplete. So one of the things I'm doing right now, in fact, I'm using 2 years' worth of NIPD's money for that, is to go out there and try to complete what we haven't got on that map yet. This $15,000 is gonna go towards stuff like that, engineering services. So what I'm not able to capture, and certainly anything else that comes up in the course of a year, if I've got to do a drainage project and I've got to get some engineering work, that's what that money's gonna be. That's what that money's gonna
Again,
be.
just asking the questions where, again, where we're potentially, where we can maybe give back a little, where we're increasing in other line items, just
That's a good question.
entertaining the
Yeah.
thought, that's all.
Right.
All right, we ready to move to the next section? Public Works, the Parks Forestry Division, Vinnie?
Parks and Forestry, okay. Okay, Parks and Forestry, overall, we've got a 7% increase, but a lot of that has to do with the salaries for one, the overtime.
Transferring monies from highway over to here,
Right,
especially burials. We hadn't fully accounted for the burials that we do on Saturdays, of where we need to be present to support the cemetery commissioners, and move that over from highway.
yes, and the other thing that we moved over to was the 2 hours per day that parks or highway personnel get for going down and opening the gates, cleaning the toilets and doing the things they do. That money had been budgeted out of the highway budget, so that's one of the reallocations that I talked about earlier.
Yep.
So this is basically, I'm sorry to interrupt, this is basically a transfer of money
Correct.
from one bucket to another, so it's not
Correct.
really an increase, although it shows it here.
No,
Right.
not really.
You answered my question, I had that one.
Okay.
And again, one of the big obvious questions is that we have a new park, you know, Heritage Park on Elm Street that we've been dealing with the Historical Commission, and, you know, we're looking to do a couple of improvements, you know, on that and continued maintenance on that, so that is another area of responsibility that you will undertake.
Correct. Yes.
Can you, Parks general expenses is a big percentage, and I went to the narrative and I read it and I didn't understand. I was wondering if I could get a better clarification about, includes a new line.
Okay,
electrical
I've got a new
code.
line here for electricity. Again, this is money that was budgeted out of the highway, but it was never put in where it should have been allocated, and that's over in the park, so,
So that's electricity for down at the ball field, right?
Correct.
'Cause we got the Squint Ramsey building down there, and that's, the Parks is
Correct.
paying for that.
and it's, yes, and the same thing with West River. I
Yep.
know we've got electric meter over there, and I don't know what
A
we use
well
for it, but-
for the irrigation system at the field behind Memorial
Right.
School.
So again, like I did with the highway, I looked at every one of these utility bills and I broke them all out. And so, ones that belong in the parks, that's where I budgeted. So that's where that, and so that's the increase as far as parks general expense. Everything else,
And before that came out of DPW,
Highway.
general, under like general expenses? So
correct.
Just,
More
again,
of a transfer,
the
right?
obvious question is, should we see a decrease in?
Well, I think I tried to answer that earlier, that we hadn't properly accounted for the trailer that we got in the last year's budget, and we're behind the eight ball this year because we hadn't budgeted enough for the cost of running that trailer. Heating and air conditioning with electricity has cost us more than we ever budgeted in the past. So we're increasing that, at the same time we're shifting some cost over to parks. It just doesn't look like it comes out that way, perhaps.
Okay.
Right. And I don't know what the savings are gonna be with the, the savings that we did with the green community. Just don't know until we've got some history. So right now, all I did was base, average of kilowatt hours, per site, and came up with the kilowatt hour rate for the budget.
Okay.
So,
I absolutely agree with putting it in the right buckets. I mean,
Yep.
that's great fiscal management and accountability. Putting it all in the right buckets and make sure, that's key.
We got a terrific new tool this year when we adopted the Green Community Program. All of our utility data for every account can be gathered, and so the Green Committee did that and forwarded it to all of us. So all the department heads were able to take exactly 12 months of data for every single utility, and we know what our rate is. We've locked it in for 2 years. We could budget, I think, with much more precision. If it's a year similar to the one we've had, we ought to be in a much better shape in terms of what we budget in each place.
Yep.
So,
So, and on the weed control, I'm assuming, since the DPW Parks is taking over, the aquatic weed management, we are gonna get to, I'm having a,
CDC?
no, I'm having a moment there, I can't
Pratt
remember.
Pond?
No, not Pratt Pond.
Wildwood?
Wildwood, right? We're gonna tackle Wildwood this year?
correct.
Wildwood was a article
Still
in
on
the
the
November
list.
special
Yep.
for that,
CPC.
from CPC. This is to increase our operating budget by $3,500, I think, to add a treatment at Pratt Pond, if I recall correctly.
Correct. Right.
That's so there'll be a
But-
rotating,
But yeah, but that's my point, is that we're not gonna have special articles anymore, we're gonna start putting into the budget.
We want
Even though
us,
we have had an article, we are gonna, transition to putting in the DPW budget.
putting in a greater sum so that we're attacking these ponds, on a rotating basis and trying to get to the point where we don't need a special article.
Right, that was my
So-
point, thank you.
$3,500 is a big jump in terms of a
Yep.
percentage basis, but we just did a full treatment of Pratt Pond a couple of years ago, and you can already see weeds coming back, so I think we want to make a more concerted effort this next year, and that's the reason for the increase.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Correct.
Yes,
under the Heritage Park, the 3,000, 1,000 of that is for the gate. So let me be cute and assume next year it's not gonna be 3,000?
Correct.
Okay, just so we're clear.
Well, the whole thing's not for the gate either.
Well, 1,000 of it is, which is a third of
Correct.
the money, so
Yes.
I assume next year it'll be slightly over 2,000 once you get a better feel of what that maintenance is. Okay,
You're right. There will be a decrease next year.
that's called putting people on the spot.
And then since Bob opened the door, or opened the gate, I should say, just want to clarify that we, again, Historical Commission we were talking about putting a gate similar to what's on the cemetery, at the cemeteries and at the beach, that after hours at a certain time, whether it be 10, 11, or whatever time the Upton Police finds a safe time to do so, and they go around and shut the the cemetery gates, the beach gates, that they will also shut the Heritage Gate, after hours, because there's really no need for anybody to be down in that back area. And again, it's
Yes.
just for safety and security reasons.
So how that's gonna work, we're gonna open all the gates in the morning, minus the weekends in the off-season. So during the regular season, from April 1st till the end of October, the DPW will be opening all the gates, including weekends. After November 1st, we're gonna pass the baton over to the police department, and they're gonna open and shut the gates on the weekends, and shut the gates on
Yeah.
that. This
I
is
just-
the agreement we have with the
I just don't want individuals to think that Heritage Park is gonna become very restrictive.
No.
No.
No,
not
with
at
the
all.
gate, that's
Safe.
all. No, it's just gonna be safe, that's all.
so, Rena, do you have time to talk about the wastewater enterprise a little bit, about the budget there?
Sure. You don't want to talk about the forestry? You had a little.
Talk about the what?
Forestry?
Did I miss forestry?
It's a line item in,
a line item.
in the parks budget.
Let me get back there. What item is that?
What I was gonna say was, I increased that one line,
1111.
based on the needs of the town. What we routinely do is it's called a windshield survey. We drive the town, and we look for hazard trees. And so based on the number of trees and what it costs us to pull up, as you know, we don't have a bucket truck, or we do have some equipment like a chipper and stuff like that, but we hire a tree company to come in here with their bucket truck. Sometimes a crane if
Yeah.
needed. So anyways, based on the needs of the town, I've got an increase here of $2,500 in the forestry.
We're trying to just make sure we're continuing to have a budget available to deal with the hazard trees and
Yep.
take them down. We feel we've gotten a bit behind over the years. We're
Yeah.
slowly trying to.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to get into the water sewer?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Fine by me.
Yeah, we have you captive. I know you're not feeling well, so I don't want to make you go too long, but you are here.
He's got a sweater,
Yeah, what a time to cough.
I know. All right.
Thank you,
he's
Mr.
got his Samoset sweater on, he's not.
You laugh.
Yeah, making them laugh.
my God.
Mistake.
All right. All right, water enterprise. Okay.
If you're prepared, you know.
I'm prepared. We're good. All right, overall, the water enterprise, we get a 3.06% increase. And you've got everything in front of you, I hope.
I have the book here.
Okay. So wages, we didn't go up much. That's all contractual, as you know. And actually, we've got some big decreases. If you look at the top part of that book, where it gets into the overall budget. As you'll see, capital outlay, we've got a major decrease.
Can I ask a question? There's confusion here. You have 3.6% decrease, yet at the bottom line, I see 2.59.
Yes, that's a mistake.
Okay,
Overall budget is a decrease by 2.59%.
so the 306 is not valid?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
my mistake.
We seek to make sure all those numbers match up, and every once in a while, we get caught.
that's what
Correct.
I thought.
Yes.
Well,
Thank you
basically
for-
tells you we're reading it, right?
We're
Right.
thrilled with that.
So overall, we've got a decrease in the water enterprise fund. That's mainly due to the capital outlay. We went from $65,000 or $100,000 that we, $100,250 that we budgeted last year, down to $65,000. And we talked about the capital side. I don't think I have to talk about that. Let's see. So general expenses,
Fairly flat.
So why is the capital outlay going down so much?
well, when I,
I'll go with the history, and then I'll let him give you the
Okay.
new information. We had budgeted this year for two things. One of them was half the cost of a new vehicle between water and sewer, and the balance was from some water system upgrades at West River. We never had really done an analysis or taken it offline in 30 years, and what did it need to keep being in
Yep.
top shape. We also planned some work at Glen Ave. So those all together came up to 100,000. We've identified just two things we need to do next year, and together they cost 65,000. So we simply have a year where we don't need to spend as much. We have some years coming where we will, but this is a year where we didn't, I mean, we could spend more, we could always attack another project, but we don't need to, so we thought it was a good year to say, let's just budget what we need and drop it down to 65.
So
correct.
to take off for just a minute, we're talking about projects. It popped in my head, and I have to say it before I forget it, because that happens all the time now. The meters, have we upgraded all our meters on our water system yet?
No. We're very, very close. We're under 50 for the entire town.
Excuse me?
Probably got about 42 meters.
Okay.
It's one of the big pushes that we're hoping to get done. not hoping, we will be done by the end of this fiscal year.
Okay.
Or if not sooner.
All right, so it is planned for this, during this fiscal year to complete that?
Yes.
Right,
We had actually bought them, we just haven't installed them.
Oh, good.
correct.
All right, good.
But that line within the budget, we're still gonna budget for meters, because the meters do have there's a life expectancy for the meters. They're on, the batteries in those meters, they say range anywhere between 15 and 20 years. So looking at the worst-case scenario would be to rotate those out every 15 years. Certainly, if I can get more time out of them, I will.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be the,
Well,
That's gonna be
I
the
guess my
program.
concern is that I know in the past, we've struggled trying to get the meters in. We're always looking for funding, and if we dropped our money, I know our goal is to have level service, level funding as much as we can, but if we can provide that service, which we have, we just haven't installed them yet. We've purchased them already.
Yep.
My question is answered.
Yeah, last year, I think you look at the line item, it was $30,000, if memory serves me.
Yeah.
This year, going forward, we're budgeting 10. We may have new services, we may have some break, so we always have a line item, but we are ready to go with that.
Great, okay, thank you.
right. And the way I anticipate it right now, that $10,000 is gonna be a flat number unless the prices of meters go
Yep.
up. And that's gonna be the replacement program.
Good, okay. So that answers my question on that. Anybody else have any questions?
Well, it makes sense, it's going in the right direction,
Yep.
Yes.
so, you know.
Just so you know, the operating capital will be going up next year. And we're looking to do a water main replacement project, so it's not gonna
Right.
overrun half of that from one,
Yep.
but
Yeah, I think we need to spend a different night on rates.
Yeah.
And planning, not only to meet these budgets, we're planning for the future, and we'll get into that in more detail.
Yep.
But I think it's fair to say that what we're going to propose is a very modest increase in the rates to meet either of these budgets.
Great.
We'll go over our reasoning for that.
Yeah. All right, Vinnie, wastewater?
before I go giving you guys my numbers, I want to make sure the numbers are right here, and they are. Okay, so we got a 4.5% increase on the wastewater. Again, wages are contractual, so that number is what it is, 1.9%. Let's see, we do have a big decrease in the operating capital. I stand corrected on that, I'm reading this wrong. Big increase, I should say, in the operating capital. I went from $30,000 to $40,000, and I can talk about the operating capital too. Operating capital, okay. Sewer collection rehab, that's I&I, at $15,000, and wastewater security. Wastewater security is just the gate around the wastewater treatment plant. What we wanted to do is beef that up a little bit from what we have here. So that's that on the security, and that's it for the operating capital, or the capital outlay.
We've had some theft at the plant. We've talked about security for a couple of years, but never felt the time, we had the money to, but wasn't a good time budget-wise to plan for it, so we want to implement that this next year.
Okay.
Last year it was half a truck, this year it's security and the I&I work we need to continue.
All right, some of the big changes here, beyond the capital outlay. What I included, this is something else that was included in, under the highway, communications, cell phones. This was never included before in the water or sewer enterprise, so it's got its own separate line here. It's, you know, it's not a big deal, it's only $1,900 per enterprise fund, but it's something new here that was never there before. Something else.
It was carried in a different line item, or was it?
No, it was actually, to be honest with you, it wasn't carried at all or at least it wasn't called out here. It was, and I don't know if Carol had actually paid that out of,
I don't know.
yeah. But anyways, I
Being
gotta,
allocated now.
I gotta believe that's what happened.
Okay.
It's being allocated now, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Okay. Easement clearing. Again, getting back to what we talked about with the detention, retention bases, I've got a line here that includes the same type of work in sewer easements. Just doing herbicide. The game plan is to go in there and clear the vegetation and apply herbicide where needed to keep down the growth. I've got a big increase, Synagro sludge removal. That's based on communications with them on what their anticipated increases are next year, so it's about a 13% increase there. Further down, this Medicare, health insurance. Health insurance has a big increase as well. Health insurance has almost a 14% increase.
Is that again because we weren't allocating it correctly?
No, we were, it's just that we're expecting an almost 13% increase in the rate overall, and we budget, the employees who work in these two funds, we budget the cost of their insurance here as well, so
Yep.
it's going up in the same amount for both of those. I think the only other big increase we have is that last year we started allocating a portion of the pension costs to these funds. We budgeted 25,000 split between the two. This year, we're trying to get that all the way to 100% of its share, which is just over $40,000 split between the two. So that's why, last year you would have seen 12,500.
Yep.
This year, it's going down in the general fund and up for water and wastewater.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Is projected new user fees, revenues calculated in these numbers?
They
I
are on
notice
the
you have,
last page.
Yes, I have revenues that we,
you have a surcharge increase and you have a user charge increase. And based upon those, you've got a differential between revenue and costs of about $3,900. It's almost a wash. And yet it states a potential increase to accommodate labor and cost increases. And if it's almost a wash, I'm confused.
It's more in the area of expenses than labor, in the general expenses like the health insurance and the pension costs. You're right, the wage increases are not, they're minimal, they're less than 2%.
But the total operational budget under the budget statement, including wages, expenses, and everything, is almost a wash to the revenue. And, I know we're projecting new growth, but we're anticipating, if we're fortunate, as I say, we will finally get some revenues increase coming in here.
But I think another night, we're gonna talk about the revenue side of this, so, this
Okay.
was not the night that
There's
we
a,
go.
there's a page that included in your budget that shows
Yep.
some scenarios and shows the connection fees that we're planning.
Right.
But we definitely need to dig into that on its own topic because it's quite involved.
Right.
But, be happy to talk with you guys
Sure.
offline about those before we get into it at the next.
Well, we're gonna have to at some point.
Yep.
Very shortly, I
Yeah.
think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we need to have a public hearing
Yeah.
for that. Okay, so, do we have any more questions for Vinnie? Nope. Vinnie, go home and get some rest. Thank you very much for coming in.
Nice sweater. How much did it cost you a night there?
You don't have to do that.
I know where it is, right up in Rockland.
it is, yes.
Expensive, it is.
Beautiful place up there.
And for a little trivia, that's where they filmed the movie Peyton Place.
Hey, what's Peyton Place?
You wouldn't know, you're too.
Are you sure?
Now,
Take care
let's
of
see
it.
if I can
Thank
get
you.
my computer back. Here we go. Here we go. Hey, see, Jim? Just going right through this thing. So, right now, we're gonna talk about, a motion to accept, execute the March 3rd special town meeting warrant. Right? That's what we're gonna talk about? So we have 6 articles, at the special town meeting. Basically, 3 are devoted to, the employees, increasing their COLA contribution. We have there's an article for the treasurer collector to increase his salary. That was segregated because he is an elected official, and pursuant to state law, we have to have a separate article, and it would require 2/3 vote to do that. We also have an article for creating transparency in our budgeting. There is a website that I know I've looked at, I know Bob has mentioned it, that really, it makes it very clear with the graphics on how the money's being spent, and it compares our spending, trends to other communities, like communities. I know the board's talked about this, and we're gonna be moving forward with that, hopefully, if we receive that approval from the town. And what is the other one? There was another one. Let me pull that one up.
The hot box.
The hot box, yeah, we have a hot box, which was talked about earlier tonight. So now that the hot box is in our capital plan, we will hopefully be moving forward in purchasing it. Through Dave Meridian, we received some money to help us purchase that. The town has to come up with a few dollars also to cover that. And there's one more article. I'm not necessarily going in order, but we have an article here for the town nurse, since we're sharing services with the town of Blackstone. We needed to allocate some more money for that because she's using more time, but we are also getting reimbursed from the town of Blackstone for that. All right? So, is there any other comments with that?
Well covered.
Blight, did I cover everything?
Yes, you did.
Okay. So, let's move on to our next agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Well,
I would like to motion that we execute the
Thank you.
March 3rd special town meeting warrant as submitted this evening.
Second that motion.
Show that as unanimous action of the board. Thank you, gentlemen, for catching
We
me on
sign
that.
it later.
I'm so focused on getting through this agenda here, I'm forgetting things. So our next action item is to motion or discuss and then motion, if we choose to execute a contract with Colonial Power electricity aggregate. Blythe, why don't you?
Thank you. You probably recall a couple years ago, we had an article at town meeting to join with the Hampshire Council of Governments. They were looking to put together a program of what became 40 communities to try to go out to bid on behalf of all of those communities to purchase power from a different source than National Grid for all of the residents and businesses in each of those communities. Hopefully, residents know that electricity has been deregulated, and you can go out and choose a different supplier than National Grid. And you can usually do it for a lower cost than National Grid offers. I know I get those at home sometimes, I'm assuming most people do. That program that Hampshire County tried to put together was not fruitful. The Department of Public Utilities did not approve their plan at the end of the day. But it doesn't mean to say we can't go forward and do this without them. There are companies out there, like Colonial Power, who have stepped in to fill that void and are doing on a town-by-town basis the same exact thing, going out to bid on our behalf and finding a different supplier for electricity at a lower rate than National Grid. So I'm proposing this company, and I include in your packet an overview of the process. I think you're all familiar with it, but in case you wanted to have a refresher on it, it's in there. And I would suggest two things. One, if you're comfortable with this, it's been reviewed by council, and they are satisfied that it meets the town's needs, the contract itself. If you want to go forward with that, that would be great. But I think as a second step, it would be a great idea to bring in the Green Community Committee and Colonial Power and have a conversation amongst the three groups about how we want to structure this. Do we want to go for straight the least expensive cost for power possible? Do we want to consider some green types of power as part of the bundle of what we buy? They might be able to give you some advice on that and for you to make an ultimate decision. At the end of the day, this isn't going to cost the town any money, and it's simply a way for us to be able to help residents transition to a lower cost power. there's gonna be a whole process by which that happens, and people are notified, and we can get into the details of that as much or as little as you'd like tonight or another night.
Bob?
The only comment I'd like to make and reinforce, this is not an obligation, it is a choice, and citizens have the right to elect to participate, and if at any time they choose to elect to opt out of the program, there is no timeline or contractual, they can opt out at any time. So it's not like we're moving forward with a program that's if or else. There are a lot of options for citizens to participate or not. And I think it's a good program. I think it's, when people realize what it is, they're going to see there's sufficient savings, and it's going to benefit us on the green initiative. So I think it's a good one.
Again, I agree with this, that we and, you know, the town of Upton, as well as this company is doing the legwork and doing, you know, to try to ultimately save the taxpayers and the citizens and the residents in Upton money on their utility bills. The scary part, and as Selectman Fleming said, is, you know, the question always comes, well, am I locked into it? Everybody's worried about locked into it, and, you know, I noticed in the overhead attachments that were in the book, it says, you know, opt out, and they bold any time and go back to the default or choose another company, you know, so if you decide after all the paperwork, you choose this company and XYZ Electricity sends you a postcard and they're cheaper, you can opt out of them and go into theirs, or you can go back to National Grid. So there is no locked in with this. So again, I concur, I think it's a great program, a great idea, and ultimately hopefully the citizens will reap the benefits of it.
Very good. So, gentlemen, I agree with Blythe. Blythe and I had a conversation earlier about having the Green Initiative Committee come in, and also having Colonial come in, and we can have a discussion. I think, you know, we should be discussing, do we want to go the cheapest way, or do we want to include some renewable and green energy in our formula? And I think the best way to do that is through discussion with the committees and ourselves, and make a decision how we move forward.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion? Because there may be attendance, there may be a lot of citizens that may have concern about this, would it make more sense to post on an off night and meet at the lower level of the town hall where there's more space and room for people to participate? And I know it's not a hearing and we're not going to be taking questions, but if we get the full green community, I mean, we've now filled 10 chairs, and it could be crowded in here.
Sure.
I only throw that out as an
Yeah, I
option.
think on a separate night, we can work with our cable executive over here and make sure we can get that done.
He's an
And
executive now.
He's an executive
smiling.
now, right? He's an executive. So,
Yeah, well,
there's not a pay increase with
yeah,
that title.
that's, yeah.
So anyway, if we can do something downstairs, schedule that, I think that's probably a good idea, Bob. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
So, anything else on that?
No.
Okay. So let's move on to our next agenda item, and if I may get to that right now.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you want to move ahead with this contract?
Yeah, I forgot it again. Do we want to move forward with the contract, gentlemen?
I'm in favor of it.
I'm in favor of it.
Well, let's have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen allow the, I don't want to say allow, accept the proposal by town manager that she enter into a contract with Colonial Energy for the aggregate of a consultant at this time. That's all they're providing at this point. Their consultant covers everything, so
Yes, friendly amendment that this was to be executed by the board.
Yeah, because it's under 25,000, right?
got it. Okay, so I motion that the board execute the contract with Colonial Energy Aggregate for consultant services, Town of Upton, as proposed tonight.
Second that motion.
Show that it's unanimous action of the board. So, hopefully, on the next one, I remember after we talk about it to ask for a execution. So our next, oh, what happened here? Oh my God, what happened?
Come on.
I'm getting there. No, I'm all set. I'm all set. Be patient,
We should
gentlemen.
have had a dress rehearsal.
No, this is good. This is real life. So our next action item is to execute the presidential primary ballot for March 1st, 2016. Gentlemen,
No comment?
No comment.
Traditional?
no comment?
Ready to go?
So let's have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the board vote to execute the town ballot for the primary election to be held on March 1st, 2016, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the following purposes of cash votes in the presidential primary for the candidates of political parties for the following office of presidential preference, state committee man, state committee woman, and ward or town committee.
Second.
Want to make it official?
Show that as unanimous action of the board.
Okay.
Okay. So our next discussion item is, we have a CHAPA, first right of refusal for 19 Maple Ave. CHAPA is I don't know what the acronym actually is, but it's for affordable housing. It is a unit of affordable housing that it wants to be sold, and because it is a deed restriction, the town has the opportunity to be the first to buy the property. So gentlemen, I'm opening up for discussion.
No interest in acquisition.
Again, Mr. Chairman, CHAPA, the Citizens Housing and Planning Association Incorporated.
Thank you.
You know, they are, again, required to send us these notifications. We get them frequently for the first right of refusal. But again, with reference to the property at 19 Maple Ave, I would say we have no interest in purchasing this property.
So before we have a motion, to give a little history, we get these opportunities probably once a year. We've had them for a number of years. The town has never made an offer to purchase any of the property, and none of the properties have ever gone private sale. They've always stayed within the affordable realm. So we don't lose that number. So, gentlemen, we don't need a motion for this. We're all set, or we do need a motion?
Just to make it official,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that the board, under the Citizens Housing and Planning Association, vote not to take action.
I would second that motion.
Show that as unanimous action of the board. Okay. So our next item is a discussion on the board's initiative on opiates within our community and our actions to assist our community dealing with this public health issue. So one of the things we want to do is we want to develop our own action committee in town, and we have a draft that we're working on that currently, but also another thing we want to do is have some invited guests. We have an individual from Milford, Amy Leone, from the Community Impact Company or corporation, and she's planning on coming on March 1st to discuss with us opportunities to partner with other communities, other agencies, to provide resources and information to our residents who may be affected by this. All right? So we look forward to this, and hopefully we have to determine what's the best way to disseminate the information and get it moving forward so it's accessible for everybody. Okay? Anything else?
At that March 1st meeting where the police chief is now part of the, correct me if I'm on the DA's
Yep.
task force, would it be prudent to have him here also?
We'll work on that. I know Blythe and I have had a conversation about getting the Board of Health involved, because this is really a public health issue.
Exactly.
I think it's our role to try to champion this at the moment, but we need, obviously, this is a huge issue in our community and in all the communities in our area. It is not just, can be handled by one entity. We all have to team up on this and work together, and make sure that we let people know where the resources are on it. So we'll do our best to make sure that's done. All right, so that being said, I don't have anything left on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, we received an invite for a meeting with Espert at the Milford Police Station, and the Board of Selectmen received it. It came in, and it's on March 16th from 8 to 12, and Mackenzie Fitzpatrick from AmeriCorps Volunteer invited us.
I've already signed up.
So that's why we got this?
Yes.
Okay. Is it for yourself or for this whole board?
I think it's for the start, for me and the
Okay.
board. I'm not looking into becoming a counselor, but I think because we have this initiative, I ought to have an idea of what's going on.
Okay.
And I've already signed up, I've sent my check in.
So it's your check she's talking about, not mine?
Right,
Okay, thank you.
right.
Okay,
So it's
Clarification.
trying to get ahead of the curve so I know what I'm talking about.
well said.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Okay. So that being said, Jim, what time is it?
Mr. Chairman, at 7:29 PM, I make a motion to adjourn.
I have 7:30.
Second that motion.
7,
7:30.